Susan Chapman, welcome to the Herald-Tribune. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll start by just asking you to again say your name and the office you're seeking, and then explain why you want to be a Sarasota City Commissioner.
Well, my name is Susan Chapman, and I'm running for Sarasota City Commission at Large, which means that we are elected by all residents of the city. My husband and I, my late husband and I, moved to Sarasota 23 years ago because of the great quality of life in Sarasota. And what attracted us to Sarasota was the arts and cultural amenities, the great weather, the outstanding environment. And what we found later is what a great community it is. And I've been a practicing attorney in Sarasota for 23 years with a downtown office. I look down on the Herald-Tribune building, and almost immediately I got involved in community affairs, first working for a variety of social agencies, including Prevent Blindness, the Mental Health Community Centers, the Sarasota Civic League. I helped to found the Women's Legal Fund. I was on the board of the Florida Association for Women Lawyers Sarasota chapter, the board of the Sarasota County Bar Association, and I've worked in a variety of leadership roles in those contexts. In addition, I worked on good government issues. When my neighborhood was facing some development issues, I helped to form my neighborhood association, which is the Hudson Bayou Neighborhood Association. And I was president for 5 years of the Hudson Bayou Neighborhood Association, and still am on the board of directors or executive committee. I was the president of the Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations. In terms of good government efforts, I worked for campaign finance reform. I chaired that. I chaired the campaign for supermajority. I also chaired the campaign for to retain the elected or the city manager council form of government when elected mayor now in 2009.
Okay, great, thanks. You are on the planning board.
I currently am.
And you voted on the proposed Walmart on Ringland Boulevard. You want to tell us how you voted and why you did so?
I was one of the 2 votes that said that that wasn't a compatible development, that it did not fit within the definition of a neighborhood shopping center.
Okay. What, if anything, do you think, would you hope could happen now at that site?
A mixed-use development. I have always thought that that was the best thing. This is a transitional area between downtown and neighborhoods, and that is the future development. I thought David Merrill's letter to the editor today was very thoughtful and talked about that being the vision 20 years ago. I do believe that we need to be aware that that site presents great opportunities for a mixed-use development. I always thought that the School Avenue project should be townhomes and mixed use, sort of along the line of what we have at Citrus Square. And then that would help to focus the development effort toward that shopping center. I think there still should be a local type grocery store there. I miss the Ringling Publix because we in downtown used to use that as a lunch place. We used to use it as a place that we could get 1 or 2 items on the way home from work, and I certainly miss that convenience. I use the hardware store. I think it would be nice to have some kind of a restaurant at the north end of that shopping center, open it up to glass, have umbrella tables, and then have a carry-out window that would serve the park. I like to think of it maybe as something like the 50s diner, that you could remember when that was in Bay Vista, in the Bay Vista area, and that you could have a cruise in, and then that would serve the park, serve the neighborhood, and serve the downtown.
Okay. I mean, those are great visions, and I think if all that can happen, that'd be great. But how do you make that happen? Because in the end, the Publix closed because I'm assuming it didn't do what Publix needed it to do in that place, and the area's gotten all run down. So how do you make that happen? Because somebody's got to come in and invest and be willing to build and put the money in and do that. And if they don't see that they can make an appropriate return, they're not going to do that.
I'm not sure it was a matter of return, or was it a matter that the Publix wanted a presence on the trail. on Tamiami Trail. It was one of Publix's oldest stores, and they wanted a much larger store, and then they wanted a presence on Tamiami Trail. So it wasn't that they weren't making numbers. It was a pretty successful store. I think there is an opportunity for what's called economic gardening, that you look for people who are looking to create some kind of a vision locally. We used to have a grocery store called the Granary that was very successful, and I think there would be an opportunity to bring in something that's sort of similar to Trader Joe's, with a lot of prepared food that would serve the downtown workers. And that could be quite profitable. You have to work from a planning context and from an economic development context in cooperation. I've had many discussions with planners about this vision, and contractors, and all of them seem to be excited about that.
I mean, there's been a lot of noise about all this. Have any interested parties step forward to say, well, if Walmart doesn't work, here I am with all my money to build something?
I'm not in a position to talk about that kind of thing, and I'm not in a position to implement that kind of thing. But good ideas can start anywhere. And one of the good things about campaigning is that you're meeting a lot of people who have a lot of ideas, and sometimes those ideas coalesce. The thing that bothers me most about the discussion that has been in the newspaper about the Walmart is that it's portrayed as either or, that we will have a underperforming property, a derelict property, or we will have Walmart. That is simply not the case. We have to be sure that we preserve what is the long-term community vision for that location, which is mixed use, transitional toward neighborhoods.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Obviously, speaking of in the news, homelessness has been in the news quite a bit. Tell us what steps, if any, you think the city particular should take.
Well, I think that it's a regional issue, and the city has to work in cooperation with the county. I strongly believe in social controls. We will always have problems with street corner vagrants and beggars, whatever we want to call them, if people give them money. And so we have to shut down that market. And one of the things I think we have to do is to train the public that giving people money on street corners is not going to help them, and it's not going to create the funds that we need for public-private partnerships to address homelessness. In addition, I am strongly opposed to feeding homeless people in parks, because that takes the parks away from law-abiding citizens. They don't feel comfortable using the parks. I think that the people are well-meaning, but it is not an effective solution. I think that having the caseworkers is a good start. A lot of times I see homeless people congregating. That should be used, that desire for social interaction should be used in a positive way toward behavior modification. I firmly support a one-stop center. I think Bradenton's one-stop center has been very effective, and the fiscally responsible option. The reason it's a fiscally responsible option is that not only do we use police and jails, which are very high-cost ways of addressing homelessness, and we get sued for it as a city, but in addition, homeless people are big users of emergency rooms. One thing that the One Stop Center in Bradenton does, which is very effective, is they recruit volunteer doctors for medical care for homeless people to avoid emergency rooms. So the social cost, the governmental cost, is often hidden in addressing homelessness when you address it inadequately. But their fiscally responsible solution is assessing those costs and directing those costs in a more productive way.
Okay. So as far as the caseworkers, I think there's been a donor, and I guess they're trying to work through that setup to fund most of it, but there's still a portion. As a city commissioner, would you vote to kind of close that gap to make that happen? Would you allocate funds for or would you look for a different solution?
I think that's a partial solution, but it's a lot more fiscally responsible solution than using police and jails. Mm-hmm. In fact, St. Petersburg, the sheriff cooperates with the homeless efforts because the sheriff was using funds for jail instead of shelter.
Right.
So we have to look at what the real cost is, and I think that knowing what the cost of homelessness is in providing law enforcement services provides an impetus for something better.
Some citizens believe the City Commission should take steps to make downtown more quote-unquote vibrant. What changes, if any, do you think the City Commission should pursue downtown?
Well, I think that downtown is vibrant, first of all. I know that the noise ordinance is proposed to be modified. I have real questions about why that is being brought up in this campaign. It may be just a campaign wedge issue, but I do know that having dealt with noise in development with the hospital, that there is an acoustical solution maybe. There's a technology solution. So far that has not been investigated. Is there a win-win in order to allow amplified entertainment? And if so, why aren't we pursuing that? We had, in my neighborhood, the proposed hospital power plant being moved toward the neighborhood, and ultimately it was going to provide high decibel sound that was a constant sound, and that was resolved by acoustical technology. Then a presenter before the planning board was talking about open air music in a different context, and they showed us speaker systems that provide noise attenuation. So I think that there may be solutions that we're not pursuing. With regard to other issues such as 200 unit and acre density downtown, we don't have the transportation system for it. If it's supposed to be providing 500 square foot units for workforce housing, we did that with the downtown residential overlay district several years ago, and it did not work. It did not provide housing. Economic Research Assistance several years ago did a study on that, and they said of all the options, a density bonus was the least likely to work. We did try it with the downtown residential overlay district, and it didn't work. Only one building of the 5 authorized was built, and the units that were intended to be attainable weren't attainable. So it didn't really work.
So what would you propose to do something about? Because, I mean, I'm new to the area, and I was trying to figure out, hey, it would be nice to live downtown, find something affordable, and there really just doesn't. I mean, the rental, there's not any type of market. And if you want to get either younger workforce or whatever, so they're not driving and get away from the suburban sprawl, you have to do something to kind of help out the downtown.
Well,
what would you do?
Well, there are units. There are housing very close to downtown, walking to downtown. One of the big proponents of the 200 units an acre lives a block from downtown in a house. Laurel Park is very close to downtown, and a lot of people who work downtown live in Laurel Park. My neighborhood is walk to town if you could cross the street, which is Mound, safely. When Duane came in with the downtown master plan, he proposed pedestrian sleeves from the Rosemary district and from the Gillespie Park area for walk-to-town neighborhoods. I do strongly believe that we can develop affordable workforce housing in the Rosemary district and have it be walk-to-town. There are large tracts of land that density has already been improved in, that we could develop live-work space, that we could look creatively toward. When we redid Fruitville Road just recently, those pedestrian sleeves were ignored. Why? I don't understand. But we are currently working on a mobility plan for the city, including multimodal transportation, which includes bicycles and pedestrians, and hopefully we can increase the multimodal access.
Going back to the noise issue, so are you committed to, I mean, you said you're not sure why it's a campaign issue. I'm new to the area, so I don't know how long this has been going on or not going on, but it seems like a hot topic issue to me, and a big issue for a downtown. I would expect that you would have live bands, you would have that type of stuff.
We do.
No, I know, but apparently there's a problem with the noise ordinance, and you can't go past a certain time, and you can't do certain things. And the way I understand it is that the reason it's been an issue is because you've been an opponent of it, but it sounds like the way I hear you, you're more willing to look at solutions. Are you committed to try to find solutions to try to help what the other side is looking for?
I have been mischaracterized on the noise issue.
That's why I'm trying to give you a chance to clarify.
And being mischaracterized on the issue, I have always thought there was a win-win solution. But if there isn't a win-win solution, we dealt with this in 2003, and there was a compromise solution that was reached, and that's what we have now. But the whole idea that 65 decibels is not loud noise when there is no absorption, that's the real issue. Noise is a technological issue, and in areas that are all hard surface, noise does not operate the same way as vision, that it dissipates. It has to have, noise has to have, or sound has to have something to absorb it in order not to bother people. So the way the noise ordinance has been proposed so far completely ignores sound technology. And sound technology is very well developed. You can see it in action at the hospital power plant. You can see it in action at the New Booker High School. You can see it in action in a lot of different places. And I do believe that we need to start looking at the technology issue and start to look at this more in depth instead of saying old people don't want it and young people do. That's just not going to resolve the problem.
I agree with you. I don't think that that's the case, that just old people want it and young people don't. But there has to be some assumption that living in the city is going to be a little louder than living in the suburbs.
I agree with that.
And the noise would be a little later. Now, using an example of like the hospital or Booker High School, you're talking about one big institution. When you're talking about restaurants and small businesses, you're talking about little places all over the place. So I think it's a little harder to have some of those acoustic solutions that you talk about. That should be factored into your economic business plan. It should be. Noise and sound attenuation should be factored into your business plan. And to say that it isn't, or if you're developing downtown residents, noise attenuation should be factored into your plan. It can be, and it is all the time. My neighbor complains about the noise on the street all the time. I never hear it. Obviously, whoever built my house paid some attention to the noise issue. There are a lot of ways to resolve problems, and I've worked on a lot of different local problems, and one thing I've learned is that there are a lot of really bright people who have technological knowledge that can help resolve problems when it doesn't seem to be possible.
Okay, so a chance to give us, say, 2 priorities, if you had to just say the things you think are most important.
Well, obviously we have the fiscal issue, which is a very important issue. If we don't deal with the unfunded pension liability in a meaningful way, all our ad valorem tax dollars will be used up. That's one. Every few years, we get this whole idea that we're going to change the structure of our government. That's coming up again, and certainly was a factor in my decision to run, since I chaired the opposition to elected mayor, the boss mayor last time. The boss mayor proposal this time is even more powerful. The mayor hires all department heads. That makes it difficult to attract good employees if they're facing that we may have a mayor who comes in and hires all department heads. It makes it very difficult to manage the city when we consistently have this issue that 52% of outside money is financing an elected mayor or a boss mayor proposal. That's what happens consistently. It's happened 3 times. The public has rejected it 3 times. It's been rejected at charter review boards more than 3 times, and yet this keeps coming up.
Okay. All right, so kind of 1-minute summation.
Let me just add, just quickly on the pension. Do you have some, what some solutions that you would put forward on what you think? I know it's not an easy problem really for anybody to deal with, but.
It isn't an easy problem, but I do think we're going to have to follow the modern corporate governance model, which is define contribution instead of define benefit. And we just have to face that is the fiscal reality.
Okay.
All right. So, summation.
Well, Sarasota is my hometown now. I've lived here 23 years and been very active in the community. I feel it's a city of very high standards, and we need to work to maintain those high standards. We need to make sure that we understand that our high quality of life and our arts and culture community are the big economic generators in our community. Arts and culture are a $180 million a year economic generator. We need to also recognize that it is our city's residents who pay 74% of our ad valorem taxes, and they pay the fees, the franchise fees, they pay the communication fees all through pass-through taxes. So we need to respect the rights of our residents to have a high quality of life. With regard to a business community, we do approve most land development, 93%, the planning board and the city commission. And we need to recognize that Sarasota is not the city of no. It is a city that has a high quality of life that draws talented people from all over the country.
Okay.
Great.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.